I know it's a rough app, so I hope you're doing okay.
I mean, okay, so I was like, oh, I'll have whiskey when I watch it. We can call this the Sassa Not Knack.
You can pretend. It's
No.
the limited edition packaging one that you have.
Sassa Not Knack. So that episode was so powerful and so gutting. The first 15 minutes, I like, honestly, I couldn't even breathe during that. Like, it was just like, you know how you feel when you're just going through something awful, like a death or something, how you're just like tense the whole time? That was the first 15 minutes.
All in your stomach? Yeah.
Yeah, in my stomach. That's exactly where I was like, ooh, is this going to be, and thank God for those 60s hallucinations, which were fantastic. Mm-hmm. Whose idea were those?
I actually don't know. I mean, obviously, Matt is kind of show running as much as Ron now, and he, I know, thought about the whole escapism idea, but I think one thing that works really well with it is that it's not as if she is just escaping to this perfect dreamland. You know, she's really grasping at it, and even the fact that the bunny rabbit sleeps in and the men sleep in, and it's all a little bit dystopian and feeling like dreamlike, and she's walking a bit slower than everyone else. And even the fact that one thing that I kind of took me when I watched it, because I feel like this was done in the edit, is that the dreamland it's not linear. So it's not as if it's progressing with it. It keeps going back to Jamie coming in the room, and it's all a bit weird, which I think kind of works. And then,
I thought that worked too. And I loved how that Jamie looked the way he did when they were younger, that he was not wearing modern day clothes like Murtaugh and Jocasta. It was so nice to see the whole cast there.
I know, it's funny, when we got the script, Richard and I were really gutted because we were like, oh, everyone's going to be having fun, like in the 60s clothing, a new location all together, and it was obviously toward the end of filming, and like, no, Roger and Brianna are dead. We're like, oh great, oh brilliant,
cool.
So
hey, happy Mother's Day from Outlander.
Yeah, there you go, just to add cherry on top of this trauma. But I think that was a good idea, though, in that, again, I think it's just Claire's trying to clasp at any kind of happiness, and then the fact that she gets the knock on the door about Roger and Bree, it kind of shows that it's the parallel to them going through the stones. As far as she's concerned, she'll never see them again. So they put her character through every horrible event possible. I feel like the women in the show, it's like, can we just have I mean Jamie as well, I suppose.
Jamie had a rough
can we just have a second of happiness?
Yeah, they're gonna need to give us some happiness in season 6.
Yeah, when Diana's writing the next book, I think we need to have a conversation. Everyone just being in a field and they're having a picnic and everything's great.
Oh, I know. We're all those promo pictures of you guys in the field. I mean, you had the setup. You could have just picked flowers.
Or that beach, you know.
Oh, that beach was my favorite. I hope you guys get to go back to like a nice beach. Not to say that wasn't nice, but it seemed cold.
Yeah, it was very cold.
Very cold.
Bare feet in a corset. I was like, oh.
You were like, oh, how was that running scene, by the way, where you guys had to race?
Oh, I mean, the one with, Katrina. It was fun, actually, and I think that was probably the most exercise the two of us had, because we filmed the beach stuff over a fair few days, so we'd obviously been in the hotel for quite a while, and I don't think that hotel had a gym, so it actually felt quite good, I think. But running in a corset is not easy, so we tried. And there's
it's like a corset workout, because right now I might get a corset because there are no gyms open.
Well, there you go. Just do sit-ups in a corset, which is impossible. And run on sand. There you go. There's a quarantine workout. YouTube video starting now.
So when did you guys watch that episode?
So we actually get, I think just Sam, Katrina, Richard, and myself get a link through to watch the episodes a little bit early, but episodes 11 and 12, we actually didn't get. I think Katrina saw it fairly a bit earlier on. I only got that maybe a couple of weeks ago. It was one of those where they send you a link that expires in 24 hours. So I had to binge 11 and 12 pretty quickly. And obviously they're both quite heavy eps. And I was like,
you're like, oh,
it's a sad day.
So do you guys ever watch any of these episodes together? Obviously this one, I know everyone was probably apart from each other, but.
No, we watched a very early on cut of episode 1 altogether. It was actually before we finished filming. I think they hadn't locked the episode yet, but I think they just thought it would be good morale for everybody to maybe have. They rented a cinema in Glasgow and loads of cast and crew went, and it was sweet. We all watched it together, so that was nice. Watching it in a cinema experience was cool as well.
This would have been a tough one to watch together.
Exactly. Yeah, I think it's better than maybe at least, you know, for Katrina to have it in private to watch on herself, I think is good. But no, we didn't. So I don't know. I mean, obviously everyone's seen it now, but I don't even know if the boys had seen it. Obviously I knew Kat had, but yeah.
The 60s hallucinations were almost like a Mad Men episode. Like, I loved how they did that. And I was like, oh, they pretty much can drop Katrina into any decade on any show. Like, maybe Claire should just time travel to all the Netflix shows or something.
I think she'd make a great Egyptian. It's just Claire becomes Cleopatra.
Can't wait.
No, it was cool. And it's fun to see all those characters that you've never seen in that time era, in that period.
I know.
Like, Lauren was rocking that 60s. Same with Maria. Like, they all just look, Duncan's as well. Everyone just looks so cool.
I know. I'm very sad that you guys didn't get to be part of that because it looked like such a fun day on set.
I know, it did. It looked like such a happy, relaxed, just improvised everything day. Yeah.
I have to say I like the 60s too because I think it effectively told how women dissociate, or people who go through sexual assault do dissociate from what's happening to them. And I thought that mechanism really worked well.
I think it's one of those that could have gone wrong, but the show handled it really well. And I think because it was almost like Claire trying to grasp at the happiness but wasn't quite making it, it was good because it wasn't just a complete seamless escape, which I think was important.
You could tell she was trying to like escape it, but it joined those two because you still felt her anxiety in the alternate universe too.
Yeah, it's almost like she doesn't belong there, isn't it? And she knows she doesn't belong there and she can't work out why. I thought that made it really interesting. But I also think it was important that it was a very, like you said, some victims do go into this escapism world when trauma's happening to them. And I think that it was really important that we showed a very different dissociation in Claire's experience than, say, in Brianna's. So obviously in episode 7, I did a lot of research because we actually filmed the whole rape scene in episode 7, which is why we got some of the flashbacks in episode 1 of this season.
Oh, okay.
We did have a full, Ed and I, that was like our first day on set together. It's like, hey, nice to meet you. Let's
my
go. Yeah, I mean, that's probably the worst headache I've ever had.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was an intense day. It was also my 24th birthday, so that was fun. But no, it was.
So that was the original assault scene that you did?
That was season 4, yeah. So obviously we get the flashbacks this season, but we did film that last year.
I have to say, of all the assault scenes that this show has done up till last night, yours was probably the worst, and I was the worst meaning like affected me the most because you don't see it on screen, you just hear those sounds. And to see, again, I'm going to go into a rage spiral, how people did nothing to help her.
It's and it was a really interesting choice for the producers too, because I think that it did show a very kind of not metaphorical, actually very physical depiction of how people react today, and that we saw the men physically ignoring it. But even today, you know, some people will know that things are going on, but they turn a blind eye. So even though it's not in the next room, it still happens that people are kind of like, oh, I don't want to know about that because I just don't want to have to be involved. So I think it was a really interesting choice of theirs, and it was brutal. But for me, I did a lot of research in terms of how different victims do respond at the time. So with Brianna, I'd done loads of research, and there's a response called tonic immobility, which is it's essentially like your flight or fight response, but it's almost one step further, and actually your body just goes completely numb, and your body. So when we filmed it, I had this moment where Brianna's crying and she's trying to fight Bonnet, but then he threatens her, which is why she stops fighting, because it's almost like him threatening to kill her took her into this complete state of fear, and then you just see Brianna's eyes glaze over and her body's just gone. She's just not in the room. And they say, and that's why when Bree's sitting up again, I had her shaking, and it's like her nerves are coming back in and she's starting to feel again. And they say that people who undergo an attack in that way often have, not always, but often have worse PTSD actually, because not to have a bad PTSD off against others, but you know what I mean?
I know what you mean.
Because they didn't experience it at the time, so they actually experience it more after. Which was really brutally interesting. So I think it was good to show, different ways. So Brianna's body just went, and Claire's mind is the one that's trying to leave. So
I know she's really trying to think how, but I also saw her like very similar to Brianna, like glaze over at one point. I think the most upsetting scene for me is when Lionel Brown, who I think should have been killed in episode 7 for the record, when he says, "Who else wants to go?" That was so traumatic just to hear that and see those men walking over. And I don't know, I'll have lots to say about that. So the Claire and Brie moments were amazing. And I saw what you mean about how Brianna almost becomes like her mom for that second when they hug. Like Jamie brings her down from the horse carriage, and she looks so like small and broken. And it's so hard to see this strong character be broken like that. And then it was beautiful. Can you talk a little bit about that scene?
Yeah, it's one of those things too. It's like, if you ever, when something awful has happened to someone you love and you can see that they're broken and sad, you just want to almost cry with them and just acknowledge how awful it is. But actually what they need in that moment is for you to not pretend everything's okay, but to put on a little bit of strength for them. And I think we see that in Brianna, because for me, your instinct would be to kind of run over to her when Brianna sees Claire come off the carriage. Because obviously at this point she knows she's been kidnapped, and of course her mind might have gone to the worst scenario that may have been that she's been sexually abused or something. But I think in that moment Brianna's just thinking, okay, I just hope she gets back in one piece. But it's that unspoken thing. I think when she sees Claire, she knows what's happened. And although your instinct is to run to somebody, I think the utter shock of it is that thing where like you're drawn toward the person, but you also are so horrified that it's almost slowing you down on the walk. And I also think that was Brie's moment to kind of brace herself and put on not so much a picture of strength for her mother, but not to make her feel worse about how she's looking and how she's been treated. So for Brie, obviously she of all people completely knows how Claire's feeling. And I just love that it's such a simple moment. You know, I don't know if you quite see it in the edit, but even Brie, you know, she like tucks Claire's hair behind her ear, like kisses her head, and it's just very.
I saw that. I saw you moved her hair at one point, especially during when Marcelly, Brie, and Claire hug, which was my favorite moment probably of the episode.
Yeah, I think it was nice to acknowledge that. Marcelly had been sort of hurt in it all too. And then the bathing scene I just think is really sweet, because it is just she's really giving Claire the space. Again, Brie knows how that feels, and I think the one thing that Lizzie said to Brianna the night of her rape was just the perfect thing that she needed to hear, which is, have my hand in my ear if you need it. And I just think it's such a beauty. There's no one way. Nobody knows the right thing to do when someone's been through something like that, and there isn't one right way for every person. And I just, by saying that, it was Brie's way of saying, like, you have your space. You don't need to talk about it, but if you want to, I'm here.
Yeah, I did think it was interesting how you like walked away from her so at first I was like, don't leave her, but Brianna understands what that might be like.
So it's as she drops the nail brush, it's almost like Brie sees that she's just really, really needing to just be by herself for a second. And I think Brianna knows Claire so well that she'll know that is actually a time, not where she needs hugging, but she just needs a moment to herself. I think that moment at the door where Brie says, like, you know, I've got you if you need it. I just think it was, lovely.
Yeah, that was
Brie's words the better.
Yeah. So I have a question for, you know, the scene where you guys hugged. You guys obviously have a lot of fun behind the scenes, but when you have serious scenes like this, what's your process? Do you rehearse this stuff? Do you just do it at the table read and then go for it?
It depends on, so often we wouldn't rehearse things like that before the day. We always do rehearsals before a take, just so that camera and everybody knows what's going on. But it really depends. For me, I always give it to the person who the scene is primarily centered around. So say for Katrina in that moment, you can just usually read a vibe. You just know that if she's in that state of mind and she's not up for laughing and joking, usually I would just kind of leave her on her own and just let that person have their time. But if you can see that maybe they need a bit of a lighten up and a space between the takes, then you can absolutely, you know, banter with them. But there's nothing worse than when you're trying to do a scene where you're really, really just in a horrible headspace and someone's trying to laugh and joke and you're like,
you're like,
can you just not right now? That was one of the ones that I think sometimes the less times they're done, the better, because it just keeps it very raw emotionally, which I think was good for everyone, really.
Yeah, the Marcelly, Brie, Claire hug scene, did you guys just do that in one take?
No, actually, because it was quite difficult logistically working out. Even though hug looks very simple, when you've got 3 people in a hug and just one camera, it's a bit like, where do you need us to be? So that was a bit difficult. And also because it was hard because in terms of Marsley coming up behind, originally in the script, I think it was like Brianna breaks the hug and waves Marsley over, but obviously Marsley was behind me. So we just had a few logistical things to work out. But so I think we might have hugged a few times, but I think we all needed it that day, so it's fine.
Oh my God, everyone needs it today. Yeah. I feel like you guys need to virtually hug your whole fan base.
I know, we should just do a big Skype hug. I feel bad for people who are isolating on their own right now as well.
So two of my favorite like female moments was when Bree shot Bonnet, and then Marcelly killing Brown was such a powerful moment too.
Yeah.
Did you feel sad that you didn't get that moment? Would you have liked it?
Yeah, I think initially it would have been great just because it's such an awesome scene to be able to do from an actor point of view. But I think it's very fitting that Marcy does it. And I think it really speaks volumes in terms of how much of a mother Claire is to everyone. Mm-hmm. And the fact that Marcy does it for Claire's sake, especially when I think this sort of inner conflict that Marsley has would be almost more than Brianna, in that Marsley is such a woman of God that, even she says to Jamie, am I going to go to hell? And I think it just shows the sacrifice that she made doing that for Claire, because she really, would never do something like that in a million years. Not that Brianna just goes around killing people, but, you can understand more that Brie would be protective over her mum. But for Marsley to do it, I just think it's a really poignant moment.
I'm very surprised they didn't have Jamie just kill him, like, upon him seeing him. Like,
yeah, I know. For all the anger that Jamie harbors and all the people that he's just ready to kill, I'm like, dude, the one person that you should have gotten rid of
in episode 7, once again.
I'm like, you guys, you didn't kill Bonnet when you should have. I
know. I wonder if they're going to show Jamie's guilt around that at all. I know they showed it a little with the Bonnet stuff. He felt like, oh, this all happened because I let that guy go. Mm. But yeah, I don't know. I'm like,
the evil does not play out in Outlander, does it? It's like, come on, Marl, come on.
I know. I was so glad Marcelly did that. I was like, thank God.
I know.
When Roger's like, hey, bro, let's not kill him now. Let's ask him questions. I was like, there are no questions to ask him. Kill him. I'm not like murdery usually.
I know. Outlander brings out the murderers and all.
I know. Okay, so Roger made me cry was the first 15 minutes were just stressed out. When Roger says, like, I'm son of your house, that made me cry. I thought that was such a powerful moment when you guys returned.
It's funny, though, because on the day when we were filming that scene, because we always giggle on set because Roger he really likes speaking and explaining things. And it was funny because that moment when we return and we're saying to Jamie, what happened? And all we want is the information as to what happened. Yeah. We just want to go and get Claire, and Roger's giving this whole lovely speech.
Yeah.
It's like, dude, we need to go. Come on, Roger.
We kind of got to go.
But let's go get Claire.
And I loved how young Ian was like, giving himself like a haircut and I was like, do we have time for this?
I know.
Get moving.
I know. There's a lot of rituals going on. It's like, guys, we just need to get to Claire, actually.
Yeah. You're like already 3 days too late.
Yeah.
What is your opinion on depicting sexual assault in television?
It's an interesting thing because, again, like, the fact that we filmed the whole rape scene, Brianna and Bonnet, by not showing it, I felt like it was a shame initially, because I think that although it's brutal at first, and obviously for people who've been through something similar to watch, it's horrific. Mm-hmm. But I also think that there's something cathartic about losing yourself in a character and watching a character go through something that you've been through from A to Z. Because I think if you see it from the beginning and you see their recovery the whole way through, then you're with them, and maybe you find some healing or some hope or some light in your own experience that way, and maybe you find your own strength through the character. So in that way, I felt like it was important to be with Brie from the beginning and all the way through and through her recovery. But like you said, I do think it's important that we don't show it too much. So I think it was good that they then just showed it in that passive way, and to show that people do turn a blind eye to it.
Totally.
But and people do say there's a lot of rape in the show and whatever else, and whilst I completely understand that statement, for one, they are based on books, so we can't take out everything. But also I think we have to remember that it was a time period where that happened a lot, and although it's unfortunate that it's happening to the family that we follow a lot, I also think, like we were saying, it is important that because each story is handled in a different victim response, a different victim healing way, a different, whether we said it's escapism or whatever. I think it is important to show that not all attacks are the same and not all healing is the same, and actually to have 3 or 4 members from the same family be sexually assaulted and handle it in completely different ways and take completely different amounts of time to heal or ways to heal or whatever, I actually think is important. And I think that that's one thing the show does well, in that we don't just have people be sexually assaulted and then the next day it's like, okay, next story. We really do see them struggle, and we see that these people aren't superheroes and they don't just get over things. And I think it's important that they show the post-traumatic disorder. I think it's good that that it's not just washed over in that way. But obviously I completely understand why it is awful for people.
I do think it's important, when it comes to sexual assault, especially for victims, they're not believed. And it is an unbelievable thing that happens to people, and not just back in the 17th century, it still happens today. And I think it's important that we don't gloss over, yes, this is happening. I feel like if people are forced to confront it, not in a gratuitous way, we could maybe try working on fixing it and on believing victims, because right now victims are not believed.
And that's the thing too. I think sometimes in TV and film, unfortunately, when there is rape, it can be glorified. Sounds like the complete wrong word, but I think sometimes it can be done in kind of a sexual way and an attractive way sometimes. And I think one thing Outlander does really well is that it is horrible to watch. And I do think that's important, because it means people can't bury their head from it. And like you said, it happens more today than we still acknowledge or realize. One of the articles that I've read, and like you said, I've always done a trigger warning from even last season. And you don't do it every episode, but for Brianna, she's been suffering PTSD now for 2 seasons. And these flashbacks and these moments could trigger people at any time. But one of the research things that I did last season, and I revisited a lot this season actually, was an article I found about a woman who, she didn't actually know that she'd been raped until she read an article and realized that it was her. It was horrific to read. And I think even things like that, whether people, I just finished watching the show Unbelievable, actually. It's funny when you say it's Unbelievable, And the girl in it, she goes to make a police report, but they make her recount the rape so many times that she actually just says, you know what, it didn't happen. And she files a report saying that she lied on her original report, and she didn't, but she just doesn't want to talk about it anymore. And it's just really interesting, because I think it shows that, it can happen a lot more than people realize, and it can have traumatic effects on people that people don't realize, because sometimes people don't really know that it's particularly rape until later on, and they're still suffering from it, but they wouldn't necessarily think, because it wasn't a fight or it wasn't, physically damaging, that people think maybe it wasn't, that it was.
I know. I mean, they're going to have to deal with it next season, because remember, after Jamie's attacks, half of season 2 was dedicated to his recovery. Do you think there'll be like a time jump in season 6? Will we still see Claire's recovery?
I hope we do, and I think that that's one thing Katrina and I are always really conscious of. The show, especially this season, it's so fast-paced, there's so much in it. It can be difficult to obviously stick with everybody's storyline as much as maybe it might feel it needs sometimes. So even with Brianna, we never really got a huge amount of time to sit with her PTSD. So I think as actors, we will always try and ensure that we keep the truth in that, even if we don't have a load of time, or there is a time jump with Claire's story, I'm sure Katrina will find ways to show that Claire still has moments of suffering. Because again, we don't want it to look like trauma just goes with time. And same for Brianna, Bonnet's dead, but the trauma isn't. So
I feel like you
probably won't sit with it anymore. I'll ensure that Bree does at times.
I have to say that last shot of the show was beautiful. It was just such an intimate, like hopeful, but like really sad scene at the same time. But it did feel like, oh my gosh, you're giving us a little something to kind of hang on to for this 2-year drive.
And I think that's one of the things that we were conscious of too. One thing I think has been great about this season is that each episode's had kind of a really big cliffhanger after each one. And obviously with episode 12 being such an intense episode, we didn't really want it to be tied up in a bow that, okay, she's fine, everything's peachy now. but also we didn't want to leave everybody with a long Outlander of cliffhanger. So I do think it's the perfect ending. And actually that scene was swapped around a little bit. So I don't know if that was Matt's choice or Guan or whoever. And we had a great director for those last 2 eps, Jamie. I don't know if it was his choice. But initially it ended on Claire and Jamie and everyone on the porch. And then that scene with Claire was actually a little bit earlier in the episode. But now them putting that at the end, I think
it was fantastic.
Lovely.
It was really beautiful. And it was interesting because, you know, you could say like, oh, 2 people are naked and in bed, and there was nothing sexual about it. It was just pure, like, it was wonderful. It was
almost childlike, wasn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. Now that we got through the rough stuff, what were your favorite parts of season 5?
Gosh, it's so funny to think back on now, because especially as we filmed it so long ago. I'm trying to
know.
And
you can pick your favorite Brianna parts and your favorite non-Brianna parts too, just like overall.
I mean, for me, I loved working with, they always say don't work with children and animals on set, but honestly, I love it. And having Jemmy was just amazing. Especially as Jemmy gets older, because you can interact with those kids a lot more. So Matthew and Andrew, those twins, are just delightful, and their family were wonderful. And I really loved working with them. I
feel sad that when Outlander comes back, they're going to be like 42 and you can't have them as your Jemmy.
I really don't want them to grow up as well. And I was asking that. I was trying to say, oh, how old's Jemmy going to be next season? Like, are Matthew and Andrew still going to be there? Because I don't want Jemmy to be 10 and then I can't work with them again.
Oh, I know. Maybe they could like do a time jump that matches where Matthew and Andrew are.
Exactly.
Just simple.
You know, exactly. So that was really fun. I mean, for me, I feel really lucky because I think, again, with the show, there's so much to fit into the show in any one season, and there's so many different time eras and different storylines to get in that we don't all get to work together very often. But I feel lucky that for me, I've managed to work with pretty much everyone. You know, I've had like Duncan, Maria.
Maybe this will be easier. What was your favorite? I'll go through the main cast. What was your favorite scene with Katrina?
Probably because it's just the most fresh right now, but one of my favorite scenes is almost just I think the running on the beach scene was just so lovely. I think when we actually get those light mother-daughter moments, it's just so refreshing and so simple. It just shows that it doesn't always have to be dramatic and huge action or whatever. Actually, those tiny moments can sometimes be the most magical. So I did really love that stuff. And I mean, the bathing scene is beautiful just because I think it just says so much without saying anything, and I think it's important scene. That was probably some of my favorite ones.
Your favorite scene with Sam this season?
There was actually a scene that we had to reshoot, which was after Myrta's death. Jamie's breaking down and crying by the fire outside, and Brianna goes out to him and she sort of says, like, I know that this is a horrific time to ask, and like I loved Myrta too, and I miss him, and it's horrible to have to ask you this, but Roger's still out there and we can still save him. Will you please help me find him? But they actually, I know, and it was a beautiful scene. Sam and I actually really loved it, but I think the studio thought that maybe it made Brie look a little bit insensitive going over straight away after Myrta's death. So we changed it, and that's where we now have the moment where Brie just turns and looks at Jamie and they just have this unspoken spoken moment. But actually that was one of my favorite scenes, so I don't know if it'll make it into a deleted scene thing or whatever, but Sam gave a really strong performance, and it was a really nice Brianna Jamie scene, so hopefully we'll see that.
I hope so. I hope they release a lot, especially in the next 2 years. We're going to need some content.
We're going to need some material,
Did you film the Mandy pregnancy announcement where Brie announces she's pregnant?
No, it was in a script, and then all of a sudden it wasn't. And I was like, no! Because it was quite beautifully done as well. It was Roger and Brianna. I think it's that bit when they're walking back to the house, and Roger says, the 3 of us will be safe here, and Brie just said, the 4 of us. And then it's like...
Oh, that's great. Mm-hmm. So they're probably going to save that, I guess, for season 6, maybe?
I think so. And I think, again, the timelines of things, because that way, if they'd have tried to go through the stones and Brie knew she was pregnant, then that wouldn't have worked. So I think it's just all of that. I mean, Marcelly's popping out enough children for the rich to be populated.
Honestly, everyone slow it down, because you have 52 children from Marcelly.
Yeah.
I thought it was so funny that they start Marcelly's relationship with Claire is her basically asking, like, what is birth control? And then quite the opposite happens for the rest of the series. And I was like,
I did you mostly.
Yeah. So one of my favorite scenes was when Jamie walks in on Roger and Bree. And I love that. I actually think it's so funny, like, and this is why I want more scenes with Jamie, Bree, and Claire. Like, Bree has never walked in an awkward moment on her parents, which seems weird because they're always having sex.
Yeah, they have a very healthy sex life. Yeah.
They do. Maybe she doesn't need to see that, but I just think those, like, Jamie's reaction in those scenes, that you guys did that so wonderfully.
Yeah, I think it was great because I love that Jamie and Brianna's relationship's growing, and he really does feel like the father at that point. And yeah, so I think seeing his daughter, even though he knows she's married and has a child and everything, but it's a bit like, oh gosh, yes, this happens.
Yeah, well, we saw so much of Roger in that.
Yeah, and I do quite like that Brianna was enjoying the awkwardness.
I know.
Like, okay, yeah, well, you guys can just have this moment, and I'm just gonna.
Yeah, she was like, she didn't even give him anything to cover up with. She's like, nope, that's my blanket.
Mine, thank you.
Best of luck to you. So hopefully we'll get some awkward family moments in season 6. Probably the latter half, because the first half is just going to be, I think, recovery from this season.
Yes, I think so.
That buffalo scene, can we talk about how 1,000-pound buffalo literally wiped you out, and Bree just is like, hey, fine.
Again, this is an edit thing, because originally, and we filmed this actually a couple of times, we did a few reshoots on this to make it look better. So Brianna gets hit by the buffalo, hits the ground. Claire shoots the buffalo, which makes it fall, but the buffalo's still alive. So Brianna gets up, runs, and gets a knife, and actually then she kills the buffalo. So there was a moment of Brianna getting up and stumbling up and getting the knife and doing all of that. But that all got cut out. So yeah, it does sort of look like Brianna's just like, yeah, hit me with everything, I'm fine.
I was like, I guess
adrenaline. We'll put it down to adrenaline. You know,
yeah, that's what I was gonna say.
Nothing hurts. Just get to Jelly.
Yeah, it's like mom adrenaline. I was like, sure. Were there any other scenes that were cut that you were sad about?
There was a little bit cut from the, there was the scene in, I want to say episode 5, where Roger finds the gem from the diamond from Bonnet.
Yeah.
There was a whole big argument actually in the middle of that scene, which was really tough for Brianna. It was something that Roger said that just really hit hard. And that kind of got taken out because I think they felt that it was a little bit, it didn't look great on Roger's part, I think. So they removed that, which from an actor point of view was a shame, because it was a really strong scene of Richard and I, but I think from a character point of view, it's right that that it was taken out, because I think it went to quite a heightened place.
So Outlander is going to be very long this time. Do you guys feel depressed? Like, how do you feel today? Are you sad that the show is over for a while, especially with everything going on in the world?
Yeah, it's a shame, because we do have honestly just like the best fan base ever, basically. And it is a shame, because then you do feel, especially when people are in isolation, the one way that we can give back to how much support we get from you guys is you enjoying the show. And yeah, now that it's over, I almost feel bad, because we're kind of just leaving people high and dry in their homes. But and again, you know, we didn't think that Outlander this time would be as long, which obviously now with coronavirus it's going to be. Yeah, and it's weird, because you know, there's, even with all of us lot just you know, maybe talking about the eps or how things are going down, or any press and talking about the show, it makes you feel closer to the show again, which is nice, because these people really are your family. You know, we spend so many hours and so many days and so many months together that you see them way more than you see your own family. And actually, when we all get separated for longer than we think, it's a little bit of like,
I know,
separation anxiety.
Well, it's interesting too, once you finish it, I don't know if you feel this way when you're binging something, but I always feel so depressed when I finish that last episode, and then I don't want to watch any other shows because I feel like I'm cheating on the other show.
It's so true. I remember, I think one of the shows that really did that to me was Prison Break, and this was before things were bingeable. You know, you would watch it, I think, once a week, but I'd gone and I'd got the DVD from my DVD store, and I'd watched the box set, and it was season 4 of Prison Break, and it's really horrific ending. And I think I might have cried for about 3 days. And it's true, isn't it? You do. You're like, you you feel like you know these characters so well, and then all of a sudden they're just off your screens and that's it. It's like,
and you're like, where'd everyone go? And it's also for you guys as a cast, you must miss each other so much right now, but it's also like school ending, you know, that feeling you have where you're like, oh, I miss everyone in my life, and it's such a unique and rare kind of moment.
Yeah.
So have you guys been doing Zoom chats, or how are you staying in touch with each other right now?
Yeah, completely. I mean, it totally is like that. Even after a film, which is usually about 5 weeks of filming, you feel that. So imagine after 8-9 months, it's mad. And especially when you're living somewhere with these people that isn't your home. You know, we all live in Glasgow. So it's funny, but yeah, no, we have been. And I'm usually terrible with my phone. In terms of isolation, I've actually been really good at Skyping people and keeping in touch. So yeah, I've had a few Skype calls with Katrina and Sam, like Lauren, Maria, we've all caught up. I've been speaking to David a bit, been texting Richard, Tim, Maria, yeah, just everyone, Duncan, everyone. We are all really close. John Bell, Caitlin, I've like talked to them all.
What are you binging right now?
So I just finished Dead to Me.
Is it good?
It's so good, and I hadn't heard of it. I just saw it pop up on my Netflix.
Okay.
And okay, this part is embarrassing because I binged season 1 in I think about 2 days, and then season 2 only dropped maybe 2 days ago. And I think I had some phono interviews, but I stayed in my pajamas all day and I watched the whole of series 2 in a day.
I've done that with so many shows, and then I feel like gutted after. Right now, also, it doesn't matter about what you're wearing. The fact that I put on a shirt today is only because of this interview.
Yeah, same. Like literally makeup. I'm like, oh my god, that feels so weird. Yeah.
I know, and I was like, should I put an eyeliner on? But I decided because we're both like emotionally spent from that episode. I was like, nobody's wearing eyeliner today.
That's same. I'm sorry, I didn't even wash my hair for you. I was like, I'm gonna tie it. Just tie it on.
I put deodorant on, and then I was like, what are you doing? Nobody.
I don't care if I smell. It's fine.
I know, Alexa cannot smell you either.
Yeah.
Sophie, thank you so much. I'll see you in 2 years when Droughtlander is over.
Pretty much.
Unless, should we put together Outlander the musical?
Well, you did agree to direct it, so yeah, you better get moving.
I feel like
something in Droughtlander.
I feel like you would sing. Who else would sing?
Jemmy would sing.
Jemmy? Okay, we know that.
Richard would sing. Katrina would sing. She's got a lovely voice. And I think Sam would be the star of our show.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe
I think Sam should tap dance.
Oh, I would love that. I saw that little dance he did. I'm a little teapot. I mean the Scottish warrior dance.
Yeah. These elegant toe taps.
All right, guys, you heard it here first. Outlander the musical coming to you in 2020.
There you go. Droughtlander just ended.